I always thought trust was the foundation of a marriage. Not love, not passion, not even respect, though all those things matter. But trust, that's the bedrock. It's the silent agreement that lets you sleep soundly at night, knowing the person beside you is on your side, no matter what storms rage outside your door. For 20 years, I believed my wife Marissa, and I had that kind of trust. We'd built a life together, brick by brick, through lean years and fat ones, through the birth of our daughter, through the loss of my father, through every ordinary Tuesday and every extraordinary crisis. I thought we were unbreakable. I thought we were a team. But trust, I've learned, is like a bank account. You make deposits over time. Small acts of honesty, moments of vulnerability, shared secrets, and silent understandings. But one big withdrawal, one act of betrayal, can wipe out years of careful saving. And sometimes you don't even know the account is empty until you try to draw on it and find there's nothing left. It started, as these things often do, with something small. A missing receipt, a late-night phone call, a strange tension in Marissa's voice when she spoke about her brother, Ethan. I'd always known Ethan was a bit of a wild card. He was the kind of guy who could charm a room and then borrow $50 from everyone in it before the night was over. He'd been in and out of jobs, in and out of relationships, always chasing the next big thing, always just one step away from turning his life around. Marissa loved him fiercely, the way only a big sister can love a little brother who never quite grew up. I admired her loyalty, even when I didn't always understand it. But lately Ethan had been calling more often. Sometimes Marissa would take the calls in the other room, her voice low and urgent. Other times she'd hang up quickly when I walked in, offering a too bright smile and a quick change of subject. I told myself not to worry. Families have secrets, I thought. Maybe Ethan was in trouble again, but Marissa would tell me if it was serious. She always had before. Then, one Thursday evening, I came home from work to find Marissa sitting at the kitchen table, her laptop open, a stack of papers spread out in front of her. She looked up, startled, as if she'd been caught doing something she shouldn't. "Hey," she said, her voice a little too cheerful. "You're home early." I shrugged off my coat and set my briefcase down. "Traffic was light. What are you working on?" She hesitated just for a second, then smiled. "Just paying some bills. You know, the usual." I nodded, but something in her tone made me pause. I glanced at the papers, bank statements, credit card bills, a few envelopes I didn't recognize. I felt a flicker of unease, but I pushed it aside. "Need any help?" She shook her head quickly. "No, I've got it. Why don't you go relax? Dinner will be ready soon." I kissed her on the cheek and went to change out of my work clothes, but the image of her hunched over the laptop lingered in my mind. That night, as we ate dinner, Marissa was quieter than usual. She picked at her food, barely touching her wine. Our daughter, Lily, chattered about her day at school, but Marissa seemed distracted, her eyes flicking to her phone every few minutes. After Lily went to bed, I tried to talk to Marissa. "Is everything okay?" I asked gently. "You seem off." She forced a smile. "I'm fine. Just tired, I guess. Work's been stressful." I wanted to believe her. I really did. But the next morning, as I was getting ready for work, I noticed something odd. My savings account, the one I'd been building for years, the one I'd always kept separate for emergencies, had a lower balance than I remembered. I logged in to check the transactions. There it was, a transfer of $15,000 made 2 days ago. The recipient was a name I didn't recognize. My heart pounded. I called the bank, hoping it was a mistake, but the transfer was real, authorized online. I stared at the screen, my mind racing. I hadn't made that transfer. Marissa had access to the account, of course. We'd always shared everything. But why would she move that much money without telling me? I tried to stay calm. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe it was for something important, something she'd forgotten to mention. But as the day wore on, doubt gnawed at me. I replayed every conversation, every odd look, every late-night phone call. The pieces started to fit together in a way I didn't like. That evening, I decided to ask her directly. After dinner, when Lily was in her room, I sat down across from Marissa at the kitchen table. "Did you transfer money from our savings account?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. She froze, her fork halfway to her mouth. For a moment, she didn't say anything. Then she set the fork down and looked at me, her eyes wide and guilty. I was going to tell you, she said softly. I just needed to help Ethan. He's in trouble, and he didn't have anyone else to turn to. I felt a surge of anger, but I forced myself to stay calm. $15,000, Marissa? That's not pocket change. What kind of trouble is he in? She looked down at her hands, twisting her wedding ring nervously. He got involved in a business deal that went bad. He owes some people money. If he doesn't pay them back, he could get hurt. I couldn't just let that happen. I stared at her, struggling to process what she was saying. So you took our savings, without asking me, to bail him out? Quote. She nodded, tears welling in her eyes. I'm sorry. I didn't know what else to do. I sat back, feeling like the ground had shifted beneath me. The trust I'd always taken for granted suddenly felt fragile, like a pane of glass with a spiderweb crack running through it. I wanted to shout. I wanted to demand how she could do this, how she could make a decision that big without even talking to me. But the look on her face, fear, shame, desperation, stopped me. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. Marissa, you know I would have helped if you'd just asked. But you went behind my back. That's not okay. She wiped at her eyes, her voice trembling. I know it was wrong. I panicked. Ethan called me in the middle of the night, crying. He said these people were threatening him. I was scared for him. I thought if I could just get him the money, it would all go away. I shook my head, the anger and hurt swirling together. And what if it doesn't? What if he comes back for more? What if these people don't go away? You didn't just risk our savings, Marissa. You risked our future. Lily's future. She flinched at that, her shoulders curling inward. I'm so sorry. I'll pay it back. I'll find a way. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe this was a one-time mistake, a moment of weakness. But deep down, I knew Ethan's problems were never that simple. He was a magnet for trouble, and Marissa was always the one who tried to save him, no matter the cost. That night, I barely slept. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying the conversation over and over. I thought about all the times I'd bailed Ethan out myself, helping him move, lending him money, covering for him when he missed family events. I thought about the sacrifices Marissa and I had made to build our savings, the vacations we'd skipped, the nights we'd stayed in instead of going out, all so we could have a safety net for our family. And now, with one click, it was gone. The next morning, I called in sick to work. I needed answers. I needed to know exactly what had happened. While Marissa took Lily to school, I sat down at her laptop. I knew her password. She'd never changed it from the day we got married. I opened her email, searching for any messages from Ethan. There were dozens, stretching back months. Pleas for help, promises to pay her back. Stories that grew more desperate with each message. One email caught my eye. The subject line was, Please, Riss, I'm begging you. I opened it, my stomach twisting. Ethan had written, They said if I don't have the money by Friday, they'll come after me. I don't know what to do. Please, you're the only one I can trust. I swear I'll pay you back. I just need this one last time. I scrolled through the thread, reading Marissa's responses. She'd tried to reason with him, tried to get him to go to the police, but he'd refused. You don't understand, Riss. These aren't the kind of people you call the cops on. Please, just help me. I'll never ask again. I closed the laptop, feeling sick. I understood why Marissa had done it. She was scared, desperate to protect her brother. But she'd chosen him over me, over our family. That hurt more than the missing money. When Marissa got home, I confronted her with what I'd found. She didn't deny it. She just sat at the kitchen table, her hands folded in her lap, her eyes red and swollen. I'm sorry, she whispered. I just wanted to help him. I sat down across from her, my anger spent, replaced by a deep, aching sadness. We can't keep doing this, Marissa. You can't keep sacrificing our family for Ethan. He needs to face the consequences of his actions. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I know you're right. I don't know how to stop. I reached across the table, taking her hand in mine. We'll figure it out, but you have to promise me. No more secrets. No more taking money without telling me. We're supposed to be a team." She squeezed my hand, her grip trembling. "I promise." "I swear." For a moment, I believed her. I wanted to believe her. But trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. I knew it would take time, maybe years, to feel safe again. That weekend, I decided to keep a closer eye on our finances. I set up alerts on all our accounts, changed the passwords, and moved what was left of our savings to a new account only I could access. I hated feeling like I had to police my own wife, but I couldn't risk another surprise. Marissa seemed to understand. She didn't protest, didn't argue. She just moved through the days like a ghost, going through the motions but never really present. I tried to reach her, to talk to her, but she kept her distance. I wondered if I'd ever get her back, or if the damage was permanent. A week later, Ethan called again. This time, I answered the phone. "She can't help you anymore, Ethan," I said, my voice cold. "You need to figure this out on your own." He tried to argue, tried to guilt me, but I stood firm. "You've taken enough from us. Don't call here again." I hung up, my hands shaking. I knew it wouldn't be the last I'd hear from him, but I felt a small sense of relief. For the first time in years, I was drawing a line. That night, Marissa thanked me. "I should have done that a long time ago," she said quietly. "I'm sorry I put you in this position." I hugged her, holding her close. "We'll get through this." "But you have to trust me, and I have to be able to trust you." She nodded, her head on my shoulder. "I want that, too. More than anything." But as I held her, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted between us. The trust we'd built over 20 years was cracked, maybe even broken. I didn't know if we could ever fix it, but I knew I had to try. The days that followed were a strange mix of routine and tension. On the surface, life went on as usual. I went to work, Marissa took care of Lily in the house, and we shared meals together, talking about school projects and weekend plans. But underneath, there was a current of unease, a sense that we were both tiptoeing around a crack in the floor, afraid it might widen with the slightest misstep. I found myself watching Marissa more closely than before. Every time her phone buzzed, I wondered if it was Ethan. Every time she logged into her computer, I wondered if she was hiding something. I hated feeling suspicious, but I couldn't help it. Trust, once broken, doesn't heal overnight. It lingers, a shadow in every conversation, a question mark at the end of every sentence. One evening, about 2 weeks after the money had disappeared, I came home to find Marissa sitting on the back porch, staring out at the yard. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the grass. She looked small, almost fragile, her shoulders hunched as if she were carrying a weight too heavy to bear. I sat down beside her, the old wooden chair creaking under my weight. For a while, we just sat in silence, listening to the distant hum of traffic and the chirping of crickets. Finally, she spoke. "I keep thinking about what you said," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. "About trust, about being a team. I want that, I really do, but I don't know how to make it right." I reached over, taking her hand in mine. "It starts with honesty, Marissa. No more secrets. No more trying to fix everything on your own. We have to face things together, even when it's hard." She nodded, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "I'm scared, Tom. I'm scared that I've ruined everything, that you'll never be able to trust me again." I squeezed her hand gently. "It's going to take time, but I want to try. I want us to get back to where we were." She leaned her head on my shoulder, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe we could get through this. Maybe we could rebuild what had been broken. But just as I started to believe things might be getting better, the past came knocking again. It was a Saturday morning, and I was in the garage sorting through some old boxes when I heard Marissa's voice raised in the kitchen. I paused, listening. She was on the phone, her tone urgent, almost panicked. "No, Ethan, I can't. I told you, I can't help you anymore. You have to figure this out yourself. Please, don't do anything stupid. Just give me some time to think." I felt a surge of anger. After everything we'd been through, after all the promises, Ethan was still trying to pull her back in. I walked into the kitchen just as she hung up, her hands shaking. She looked up, guilt written all over her face. "It was Ethan," she said quietly. "He's in trouble again. He says he needs more money." I clenched my jaw, trying to keep my voice steady. "And what did you tell him?" She shook her head. "I told him no. I told him I couldn't help him anymore, but he sounded desperate, Tom. I'm worried about him. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. Marissa, you can't save him. He has to learn to take care of himself. We can't keep sacrificing our family for his mistakes. She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. I know, I feel responsible. He's my brother. I wrapped my arms around her, holding her as she cried. You're not responsible for his choices. You've done more than enough. It's time to let go. She sobbed into my chest, her body shaking. I held her until the tears stopped, until she was just breathing quietly, her head resting against my heart. That night, after Lily was asleep, Marissa and I sat down and talked for hours. We talked about Ethan, about our marriage, about the future. We made a plan. No more secrets. No more bailing Ethan out. If he called, we would deal with it together. We would put our family first. For the first time in a long time, I felt like we were on the same page. It wasn't perfect, and I knew it would take time to rebuild the trust that had been lost. But we were trying. We were moving forward, one step at a time. But life, as I was learning, rarely moves in a straight line. Just when you think you've found your footing, the ground shifts beneath you. A few days later, I got a call from the bank. There had been another attempt to transfer money from our account. This time, the new account I'd set up. The bank had flagged it as suspicious and blocked the transaction. My heart pounded as I listened to the details. Someone had tried to move $5,000 to an account in Ethan's name. I hung up, my hands shaking. I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to think Marissa would go behind my back again. But the evidence was there, staring me in the face. That evening, I confronted her. Did you try to transfer money to Ethan? She looked at me, her eyes wide with shock. No, I swear I didn't. I haven't talked to him since Saturday. I believed her. I wanted to believe her. But if it wasn't Marissa, then who was it? I realized, with a sinking feeling, that Ethan must have gotten access to our account information somehow. Maybe he'd guessed the password, or maybe Marissa had told him in a moment of weakness. Either way, it was clear Ethan wasn't going to stop. And as long as he was out there, our family would never be truly safe. That night, after Marissa and Lily had gone to bed, I sat alone in the living room, the glow of the streetlights casting long shadows across the floor. My mind raced with questions, doubts, and a growing sense of dread. I replayed every conversation I'd had with Marissa about Ethan, every time she'd insisted she was done helping him, every time she'd promised there would be no more secrets. I wanted to believe her, but the evidence was mounting that Ethan was still a threat to our peace. I opened my laptop and logged into our bank account, double-checking every recent transaction. The attempted transfer was there, flagged as suspicious and denied. I scrolled through the security settings, looking for any sign of a breach. Nothing obvious. I changed the password again, this time to something completely random, and enabled two-factor authentication. I made a mental note to call the bank in the morning and ask about additional security measures. But even as I took these precautions, I knew it wasn't enough. Ethan was persistent, and desperate people do desperate things. I needed to know exactly how he'd gotten our account information. I needed to know if Marissa had slipped, or if Ethan had found another way in. The next morning, I waited until Lily had left for school before bringing it up with Marissa. She was making coffee, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, her eyes tired but clear. I watched her for a moment, searching her face for any sign of guilt or deception. Marissa, I said quietly, we need to talk about Ethan. There was another attempt to take money from our account. The bank stopped it, but it was in his name. She froze, the coffee pot halfway to the mug. What? I didn't. Tom, I swear I haven't talked to him. I haven't given him any information. I believed her. I wanted to believe her. But I needed to be sure. Are you sure you didn't mention anything? Not even in passing? Maybe he saw you log in or overheard you talking about the account? She shook her head, her eyes filling with tears. No, I've been so careful. I haven't seen him. I haven't called him. I don't know how he could have gotten the information. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. Well, he got it somehow. Maybe he guessed the password. Or maybe he's just trying random things. Either way, we need to be extra careful. She nodded, her hands trembling as she poured the coffee. I'm so sorry, Tom. I never wanted any of this. I just wanted to help him, but now it feels like he's tearing us apart. I walked over and wrapped my arms around her, holding her close. We'll get through this. But we have to be a team. No more secrets, no more helping Ethan. We have to protect our family. She nodded against my chest, her tears soaking into my shirt. I promise, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. For the next few days, things were tense but calm. Marissa and I kept a close eye on our accounts, checking them daily. We talked more openly than we had in months, sharing our fears and frustrations. It felt like we were finally starting to heal, to rebuild the trust that had been shattered. But then, one evening, as we were cleaning up after dinner, the doorbell rang. I glanced at Marissa, who looked as surprised as I felt. We weren't expecting anyone. I wiped my hands on a towel and went to answer the door. Standing on the porch, looking disheveled and desperate, was Ethan. He looked thinner than I remembered, his eyes sunken and wild. He glanced nervously over his shoulder before meeting my gaze. "Tom, please. I need to talk to Marissa. It's important." I felt a surge of anger, but I kept my voice steady. "Ethan, you need to leave. You're not welcome here." He shook his head, his voice pleading. "Please, just let me talk to her. I'm in trouble. I don't have anywhere else to go." Marissa appeared behind me, her face pale. "Ethan, what are you doing here?" He stepped forward, his hands shaking. "Marissa, I'm sorry. I know I've messed up. But I need your help. Just this once, I swear. If you don't help me, I don't know what's going to happen." I stepped between them, blocking his path. "No, Ethan, you've taken enough from us. You need to leave." He looked at Marissa, his eyes pleading. "Please, Riss, I'm your brother." Marissa's voice was shaky but firm. "I can't, Ethan, I'm sorry. I can't help you anymore." Ethan's face crumpled, and for a moment, I saw the scared little boy he used to be. But then his expression hardened, and he turned on his heel, stalking down the driveway without another word. I closed the door, my heart pounding. Marissa leaned against the wall, her eyes closed, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." I pulled her into my arms, holding her as she cried. I didn't have any words left. All I could do was hold her and hope that, somehow, we'd find a way through this. The days after Ethan's visit passed in a haze of anxiety and exhaustion. Marissa barely spoke, moving through the house like a shadow. I tried to keep things normal for Lily's sake, helping her with homework, making her favorite pancakes on Saturday morning, even taking her to the park for a few hours of laughter and sunlight. But the tension in our home was a living thing, pressing in on all of us, making every conversation feel like it was happening underwater. I found myself replaying Ethan's desperate face at the door, the way his voice cracked when he pleaded with Marissa. I wanted to feel nothing but anger toward him, but I couldn't help remembering the times he'd made us laugh, the way he'd played with Lily when she was little, the way Marissa had always looked out for him. Family, I reminded myself, is complicated, but that didn't mean I could let him destroy what we'd built. One evening, after Lily had gone to bed, Marissa and I sat in the living room, the silence between us heavy and uncomfortable. She stared at her hands, twisting her wedding ring around her finger. "I keep thinking about when we were kids," she said quietly. "Ethan was always getting into trouble, and I was always the one who had to fix it. My parents expected it. They'd say, 'Look after your brother, Marissa. He needs you.' I guess I never learned how to stop." I listened, letting her words fill the space between us. "You're not responsible for him anymore," I said gently. "You have your own family now. You have to put us first." She nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. "I know. I want to, but it's hard to let go of that old role. It's like if I stop helping him, I'm failing him. Or maybe I'm failing myself." I reached over and took her hand. "You're not failing anyone. You've done more for Ethan than anyone could expect. But you can't keep sacrificing yourself and us for someone who doesn't want to change." She squeezed my hand, her grip tight. "I want to believe that. I really do." We sat in silence for a while, the only sound the ticking of the old clock on the mantel. Finally, Marissa spoke again. "I think I need to talk to someone. A therapist, maybe. I need to figure out why I keep doing this, why I can't let go." I felt a wave of relief. "I think that's a good idea. I'll support you, whatever you need." She smiled weakly, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "Thank you, Tom. I'm sorry for everything. I want to make this right." The next day, Marissa made an appointment with a counselor. She started journaling, writing down her thoughts and feelings. trying to untangle the knots that had been tied in her heart for years. I could see the effort she was making, the way she was trying to rebuild the trust between us, one small step at a time. Meanwhile, I kept a close eye on our finances, checking the accounts every day, making sure there were no more surprises. I changed passwords, set up new security questions, and even called the bank to explain the situation. They assured me that our accounts were secure, but I couldn't shake the feeling that Ethan was still out there, waiting for another opportunity. A week later, Marissa came home from her counseling session looking lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. She sat down next to me on the couch and took my hand. "I talked about Ethan today," she said, "about how I've always felt responsible for him, even when it hurt me. The counselor said it's normal to want to help family, but there's a difference between helping and enabling. She said I need to set boundaries, not just for Ethan, but for myself." I nodded, feeling a surge of pride. That sounds like good advice. Marissa smiled, a real smile this time. "I think I'm ready to set those boundaries. I think I'm ready to put us first." That night, for the first time in a long time, we laughed together. We watched a silly movie, shared a bowl of popcorn, and talked about plans for the summer. It wasn't perfect. There were still scars, still moments of doubt, but it felt like a new beginning. But just as we started to find our footing, the past came knocking once again. Late one night, the phone rang. I answered, my heart pounding. It was Ethan. His voice was slurred, desperate. "Tom, please, I need help. I'm in trouble. I don't know where else to go." I closed my eyes, feeling the old anger and pity rise up inside me. "Ethan, you need to get help. We can't keep bailing you out. You have to take responsibility for your own life." He started to cry, begging, pleading, but I stood firm. "I'm sorry, Ethan. I can't help you. Not this time." I hung up, my hands shaking. I knew it was the right thing to do, but it didn't make it any easier. When I told Marissa about the call, she nodded, her eyes sad but resolute. "We did the right thing," she said. "He has to learn to stand on his own." We held each other in the darkness, hoping that somehow we'd finally broken the cycle. The next morning, the house felt different. There was a quietness, but not the heavy, suffocating kind that had settled over us in the weeks before. This was a gentle calm, the kind that comes after a storm has passed, when the air is washed clean and the world feels new. Marissa moved through the kitchen with a lightness I hadn't seen in months, humming softly as she made coffee. Even Lily seemed to sense the change, chattering about her upcoming school play and asking if we could all go out for ice cream that weekend. I watched Marissa as she packed Lily's lunch, her hands steady, her eyes clear. She caught me looking and smiled, a real unguarded smile that reached her eyes. For the first time in a long time, I felt hope blooming in my chest. Maybe we really could move forward. Maybe the worst was behind us. But healing, I was learning, isn't a straight line. It's a winding path, full of unexpected turns and setbacks. That afternoon, as I was leaving work, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something made me answer. "Hello?" There was a pause, then a familiar voice, raw and broken. "Tom, it's Ethan." I felt my jaw clench. "What do you want, Ethan?" Quote. He sounded exhausted, defeated. I wanted to say I'm sorry for everything. I know I've messed up. I know I've hurt Marissa and you and Lily. I don't expect you to forgive me. I needed to say it. I was silent for a moment, unsure what to say. Part of me wanted to hang up, to protect the fragile peace we'd found. But another part, the part that remembered the scared kid Ethan used to be, couldn't turn away completely. "I appreciate you saying that," I said finally. "But you need to get help, Ethan. You can't keep living like this." He let out a shaky breath. "I know, I'm trying. I really am. I don't know where to start." I hesitated, then gave him the number for a local support group. "Call them. They can help. But you have to do the work. No one can do it for you." He was quiet for a long time. "Thank you, Tom. I mean it. I'm sorry for everything." I hung up, feeling a strange mix of relief and sadness. I wanted to believe Ethan could change, but I knew it wasn't my responsibility anymore. I had my own family to protect. When I got home, I told Marissa about the call. She listened quietly, her face unreadable. "Do you think he'll really get help?" she asked. I shrugged. "I don't know. I hope so. But we can't let him drag us down with him. We have to focus on us now." She nodded, her eyes shining with unshed tears. I know. I want to. I hope he finds his way. That evening, we took Lily out for ice cream, just like she'd asked. We sat on a bench in the park, watching the sunset as Lily chased fireflies across the grass. Marissa leaned her head on my shoulder, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt at peace. But even as we laughed and enjoyed the simple pleasure of being together, I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Trust, once broken, takes time to rebuild. There would be setbacks, moments of doubt, and old wounds that would ache on rainy days. But we were moving forward, one step at a time. Over the next few weeks, Marissa continued her counseling sessions. She started setting boundaries, not just with Ethan, but with her parents, who had always expected her to be the family fixer. She learned to say no, to put our family first, to ask for help when she needed it. I saw her growing stronger, more confident, more herself. I worked on my own healing too. I talked to a counselor, learned to let go of the anger and resentment I'd been carrying. I focused on being present with Marissa and Lily, on building new memories to replace the painful ones. Slowly, the cracks in our marriage began to heal. We talked more, laughed more, found our way back to each other. There were still hard days, still moments when the past threatened to pull us under. But we faced them together, as a team. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the stars, Marissa took my hand. "Thank you," she said softly, "for not giving up on me, for fighting for us." I squeezed her hand, my heart full. We're worth fighting for. And as the night settled around us, I knew it was true. The summer unfolded with a sense of cautious optimism. Marissa and I made a point to spend more time together, not just as parents, but as partners. We took long walks in the evenings, sometimes in comfortable silence, sometimes talking about everything and nothing. Lily's laughter filled the house again, and even the old dog seemed to sense the shift, wagging his tail more often and curling up at our feet during movie nights. But the shadow of what had happened lingered, a reminder that trust, once fractured, never quite returns to its original shape. There were moments when I'd catch Marissa staring out the window, lost in thought, or when I'd find myself double-checking the bank accounts just to be sure. We both knew it would take time, maybe a long time, to fully heal. One Saturday, as we were cleaning out the garage, Marissa found an old box of photos from our early years together. We sat on the floor, flipping through pictures of our first apartment, our wedding, Lily as a baby. There was a bittersweetness to it, a reminder of how far we'd come and how much we'd weathered. "Do you ever wish we could go back?" Marissa asked, holding up a photo of us on our honeymoon, grinning at the camera, sunburned and happy. I smiled, remembering the feeling of endless possibility we'd had back then. Sometimes, but I think, even with everything that's happened, I wouldn't trade what we have now. We're stronger, maybe a little scarred, but stronger. She leaned her head on my shoulder. I hope so. I want to believe that. We spent the afternoon lost in memories, letting the past remind us of the love that had always been there, even when it was buried under fear and doubt. As the weeks passed, Ethan's presence faded from our daily lives. He didn't call, didn't show up at our door. Marissa heard from her parents that he'd checked into a rehab program, finally taking the first real step toward getting help. She was relieved, but cautious, not ready to let hope take root just yet. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching a summer storm roll in, Marissa turned to me, her eyes serious. "Do you think we'll ever really get past this?" she asked. "Or will it always be there, between us?" I thought about it for a moment, listening to the distant rumble of thunder. "I think it'll always be a part of our story. But it doesn't have to define us. We get to decide what comes next." She nodded, a small smile tugging at her lips. "I want to write a new chapter. One where we're honest and open and together." I reached for her hand, feeling the warmth of her skin. Me too. That night, as the rain tapped against the windows and the world outside faded into darkness, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known in a long time. We were still here, still together, still fighting for each other. But life, as always, had more lessons in store. A few days later, Marissa received a letter in the mail. It was from Ethan, sent from the rehab center. She read it in silence, her eyes scanning the page, her expression unreadable. When she finished, she handed it to me. "Dear Riss," it began. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness or your help. I've hurt you, and Tom and Lily more than I can ever make up for. But I want you to know I'm trying. For the first time in my life, I'm really trying. I'm sorry for all the pain I've caused. I hope someday you can forgive me. But even if you can't, I want you to know I love you. You were always the best part of my life." I finished reading, my throat tight. Marissa wiped away a tear, her hands trembling. "I want to believe him," she whispered. "I want to believe he can change." I put my arm around her, holding her close. "Maybe he can, but even if he doesn't, you did everything you could. Now it's his turn." We sat together, watching the storm pass, the sky clearing to reveal a sliver of moonlight. It wasn't a perfect ending, but it was a beginning. A chance to move forward, together, into whatever came next. The days grew longer, and the air turned heavy with the promise of late summer. Life settled into a new rhythm, one that felt both familiar and changed. Marissa and I found ourselves talking more openly, not just about Ethan or the past, but about our dreams, our fears, and the small, everyday things that make up a life. We started a new tradition. Every Sunday morning after breakfast, we'd take a walk through the neighborhood, just the two of us leaving our phones at home. Sometimes we talked, sometimes we walked in silence, but always we were together. Lily thrived in the warmth of our renewed attention. She brought home drawings from school, stories about her friends, and a growing list of things she wanted to do before summer ended. We took her to the zoo, to the movies, to the lake for a day of swimming and laughter. Each outing felt like a small victory, a reminder that even after everything, we could still create joy. But healing is never linear. There were days when the old wounds ached, when a careless word or a forgotten promise would bring the past rushing back. One evening, as we were cleaning up after dinner, Marissa found herself snapping at me over something trivial, a misplaced bill, a forgotten errand. The tension flared, sharp and sudden, and for a moment, it felt like we were right back where we started. We stood in the kitchen, the silence between us thick with unspoken words. Finally, Marissa took a deep breath and looked at me, her eyes shining with frustration and regret. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I'm just scared, I guess. Scared that I'll mess up again, that you'll never really trust me." I crossed the room and took her hands in mine. "We're both scared, but we're here. We're trying. That's what matters." She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I want to be better. For you, for Lily, for myself." I hugged her, holding her close until the tension melted away. "We're getting there, one day at a time." That night, as we lay in bed, I thought about how easy it is to take trust for granted, until it's gone. I realized that rebuilding it wasn't about grand gestures or dramatic apologies. It was about the small things. Showing up, telling the truth, choosing each other every day. A week later, Marissa received another letter from Ethan. This one was shorter but filled with hope. He wrote about the progress he was making in rehab, the friends he'd found, the plans he was starting to make for his future. He thanked Marissa for never giving up on him, even when he'd given up on himself. Reading the letter, I saw a flicker of relief in Marissa's eyes. She smiled, a real, hopeful smile, and for the first time, I believed that maybe Ethan could find his way. We decided to write back, together. We told Ethan we were proud of him, that we hoped he'd keep working on himself, that we wanted him to be a part of our lives, but only if he respected the boundaries we'd set. It was a hard letter to write, but it felt right. It felt honest. As the summer drew to a close, we celebrated Lily's birthday with a backyard party. Friends and family gathered, laughter and music filling the air. Marissa and I watched Lily blow out her candles, her face lit up with joy, and I felt a surge of gratitude. We'd been through so much, but we were still standing, still together. That night, after everyone had gone home and the house was quiet, Marissa and I sat on the porch, watching the stars. "Do you think we'll ever be completely healed?" she asked, her voice soft. I thought about it for a moment, then shook my head. "I don't know. Maybe not. But I think maybe healing isn't about erasing the scars. Maybe it's about learning to live with them and letting them remind us of how far we've come." She smiled, leaning into me. "I like that." We sat in silence, the night air cool and sweet, and for the first time in a long time, I felt truly at peace. The first hints of autumn crept into the air, crisp and golden, as if the world itself was ready for a fresh start. Lily went back to school, her backpack a little heavier, her stride a little more confident. Marissa and I settled into a routine that felt both new and hard-won. We still had our Sunday walks, our quiet evenings, our shared glances across the dinner table that said, "We made it through." But the past, I realized, never truly disappears. It lingers in the corners, waiting for a moment of weakness, a lapse in vigilance. One Saturday morning, as I was sorting through the mail, I found an envelope addressed to Marissa in Ethan's handwriting. My heart skipped a beat. I hesitated, then handed it to her without a word. She opened it slowly, her hands steady. Inside was a single sheet of paper, written in Ethan's careful script. He wrote about his progress in rehab, about the job he'd been offered at a local hardware store, about the friends he'd made who were helping him stay sober. He thanked Marissa again for her support, and for the boundaries she'd set. "I know now that real love means letting people face their own consequences," he wrote. "Thank you for loving me enough to let me fall." Marissa read the letter twice, then folded it carefully and set it aside. She looked at me, her eyes shining with a mix of relief and sadness. "He's really trying," she said. "For the first time, I think he might actually make it." I nodded, feeling a cautious hope. He's got to do it for himself. But I'm glad he's trying. We decided to invite Ethan over for dinner, but with clear boundaries. Marissa called him, her voice steady and kind. "We want you to come, Ethan. But we need you to understand. No more secrets, no more asking for money. If you're really committed to this new life, we want to support you. But we can't go back to the way things were." Ethan agreed, his voice quiet but determined. "I understand, Riss. I just want to see you. I want to meet Lily again, if that's okay." The night of the dinner, I was nervous. I watched Marissa set the table, her movements precise, her face calm but focused. Lily was excited, chattering about what she'd say to her uncle, what questions she'd ask. When Ethan arrived, he looked different. Thinner, yes, but also clearer, more present. He brought a small bouquet of flowers for Marissa and a book for Lily. Dinner was awkward at first, the conversation stilted, everyone careful not to step on old wounds. But as the evening wore on, the tension eased. Ethan told stories from rehab, about the people he'd met, the lessons he'd learned. He apologized to Lily for missing so much of her life, and she, in her innocent way, forgave him without hesitation. After dinner, Ethan and I sat on the porch while Marissa and Lily cleaned up inside. He looked at me, his eyes clear and steady. "I owe you an apology, Tom, for everything. For putting you in that position, for taking advantage of your kindness. I can't change the past, but I want to do better. For Marissa, for Lily, for myself." I nodded, feeling the weight of his words. "It's not about me, Ethan. It's about you. You have to want this for yourself. But I appreciate what you said." He smiled, a small, genuine smile. "I do want it. For the first time, I really do." When the evening ended, Ethan hugged Marissa and Lily, then shook my hand. "Thank you," he said simply. After he left, Marissa and I sat together in the quiet house, the echoes of laughter and conversation lingering in the air. "Do you think he'll be okay?" she asked. I squeezed her hand. "I think he's on the right path, and so are we." The past would always be a part of us, but it didn't have to define our future. We had learned to set boundaries, to forgive, to trust again, not blindly, but with open eyes and open hearts. The weeks after Ethan's visit felt like a gentle exhale, as if our family had been holding its breath for years and was finally learning to breathe again. There was a new rhythm to our days, one that felt honest and unforced. Marissa and I found ourselves talking late into the night, not about problems or fears, but about dreams, places we wanted to travel, things we wanted to teach Lily, the kind of people we hoped she'd become. We laughed more, too, sometimes at nothing at all, just grateful for the simple joy of being together. Ethan kept in touch, sending short updates every week or so. He wrote about his job at the hardware store, about the small apartment he'd found, about the meetings he attended, and the friends who kept him accountable. He never asked for money, never hinted at needing help. Instead, he thanked us for believing in him, even when he hadn't believed in himself. Marissa would read his letters aloud at the dinner table, her voice steady, her eyes bright with hope. One Saturday, we invited Ethan to join us for a hike in the state park. Lily was thrilled, racing ahead on the trail, calling for her uncle to keep up. Ethan laughed, breathless but happy, and for the first time, I saw a glimpse of the man he could become, a man who was present, responsible, and grateful for a second chance. At the summit, we sat on a rocky outcrop, looking out over the valley below. The sun was warm on our faces, the sky impossibly blue. Marissa leaned against me, her hand in mine, while Lily and Ethan searched for shapes in the clouds. "I never thought we'd get here," Marissa whispered. "Not after everything." I squeezed her hand. "Me neither, but I'm glad we did." Ethan joined us, sitting cross-legged on the rock. He looked at Marissa, then at me. "I know I can't ever make up for what I did, but I want you to know I'm trying. Every day. And I'm grateful you gave me another chance." Marissa smiled, tears shining in her eyes. "We're proud of you, Ethan. Just keep going." That's all we ask. The hike back down was filled with laughter and stories, Lily peppering Ethan with questions about his new job and his favorite books. When we reached the car, Ethan hugged us all, promising to come by for dinner the next week. That night, after Lily was asleep, Marissa and I sat on the porch, watching the fireflies dance in the darkness. The air was cool, the world quiet except for the distant hum of crickets. "Do you think we're finally okay?" Marissa asked, her voice soft. I thought about it for a moment, then nodded. "I think we're better than okay. We're stronger. We've learned how to trust again, not because we forgot what happened, but because we chose to move forward." She rested her head on my shoulder. "Thank you for not giving up on me, on us." I kissed her forehead, feeling a deep sense of peace. We're a team. That's what matters. As the night deepened, I realized that trust isn't something you earn once and keep forever. It's something you build, day by day, choice by choice. It's the quiet promise you make every morning, the forgiveness you offer every night. It's the willingness to be vulnerable, to risk being hurt, because the alternative, living without trust, is no life at all. We'd been tested, broken, and rebuilt. Our scars would always be there, reminders of what we'd survived. But they were also proof of our resilience, our commitment, our love. And as I held Marissa close, listening to the steady rhythm of her breathing, I knew that whatever the future held, we would face it together. Autumn deepened, painting the trees in gold and crimson, and our lives settled into a kind of quiet contentment I hadn't dared hope for a year ago. The air was crisp, the days shorter, and every evening seemed to invite us to gather close, around the dinner table, on the couch with a movie, or bundled up on the porch with mugs of hot cider. There was a sense of gratitude in our home, a recognition of how fragile happiness can be and how fiercely it must be protected. One Saturday, as we raked leaves in the yard, Lily asked if Uncle Ethan could come over to carve pumpkins. Marissa smiled and texted him, and he arrived an hour later, carrying a bag of apples from the farmer's market and a shy, hopeful grin. The afternoon was filled with laughter and the sweet scent of cinnamon. We carved silly faces into pumpkins, roasted seeds, and told stories as the sun dipped behind the trees. Ethan seemed lighter, more at ease, and I realized how much he'd changed, not just in the way he spoke or carried himself, but in the way he listened, the way he was present. After dinner, as Lily showed Ethan her latest school project, Marissa and I stood in the kitchen, watching them. She reached for my hand, her eyes shining. "I never thought we'd have this again," she whispered. "A family, real peace." I squeezed her hand, feeling the truth of it settle deep in my chest. We fought for it. We earned it.